My name is Gloria White, and today is July the 17th, 2023, and I'm here with Larry Foerster, and this interview is sponsored by the Heritage Museum of Montgomery County. Hi, Larry, how are you?
Great, Gloria. Thank you for letting me be here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. Were you born in Montgomery County?
No, I was actually born in Houston in 1948 and didn't come to Montgomery County till 1978.
Okay, so tell us about your childhood growing up in Houston.
Well, actually, my dad worked for what was originally called Humble Oil and Refining. People from Conroe would remember that, the old timers, but today it's Exxon Mobil. And he worked in the oil field, and we traveled around quite a bit in my younger days. And after being born in Houston, we traveled all through Texas in one Humble Oil camp after another. Eventually landed in Baytown, Texas when I was in 6th grade and finished grade school, junior high, and high school in Baytown, 1 year at Lee College before going off to college.
Okay, so how was that experience growing up and you traveling because your dad worked for Humble Oil? How was that experience?
You know, at the young age, I had my sister and my younger brother, and we're talking about the times during the 50s and early 60s, and it was a different time than the young people experience today, but we had a lot of fun. We just sort of played with each other and watched a little TV and played a lot of ball sports in the front and backyard, and got to know the neighborhood kids during that time.
So you moved around, you attended several different schools, or did you mainly stay in Baytown when you started school?
Well, I was, when I started kindergarten and through the 2nd grade, I was in a little town called Winters, Texas, which is out in West Texas, about 50 miles south of Abilene, Texas. And then I moved to Houston, and we were in a Christian school there for 3 years, and then Baytown starting in the 6th grade in public school there.
Okay, so you graduated from public school in Baytown, Texas.
Yes.
So upon graduation, did you know, you went to Lee College, so did you know what you was going to study after you graduated from high school?
Most kids don't, you know. They're still trying to figure out what they want to do with the rest of their lives. But early on, I enjoyed history and political science, so I chose, by the time I got to Texas Tech, which was my sophomore year, I decided I wanted to be major in history and political science.
Okay, so you went from you said Texas Tech, you started at Lee College, and then you went to Texas Tech. So tell us about your experience when you was at Texas Tech.
Well, I started there in 1968 as a sophomore, and took history classes and all the basic classes, and enjoyed Lubbock, enjoyed football and all the other sports. I was a member of an organization that they call the Saddle Tramps, which is a men's service organization that supported Texas Tech, and I was active in that for the last 2 years of my time at Texas Tech. Both of my parents were from West Texas, and my dad was the first person to get a college degree in his family, and my mother was the first person to get a college degree in her family. Both of them, because they lived either in Lubbock or close to Lubbock, went to Texas Tech.
Okay, so you ended up going to the same school your parents went to.
Yes.
And tell us about your siblings.
Well, I have a sister, Karen, who is 2 years younger. She actually is a retired school teacher, art teacher. She lives here in Conroe. And then I have a brother who's about 6.5 years younger, Keith, and he and his wife and his family have been living in Anchorage, Alaska now for probably over 30 years.
Wow, Anchorage. So you have a sister and a brother?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Nieces and nephews?
Several.
Several?
Yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. So your dad, did your mom work, or was she a stay-at-home mom?
You know, my mom got married 2 weeks after she graduated from school with a general business degree, and she became a homemaker. And so she worked very hard, as all women do, in the house, and raised 3 kids and supported the family.
Okay. So you were at Texas Tech. So how long once you graduated from Texas Tech, did you stay in Lubbock, or did you move?
No. When I was about to graduate in 1971, the draft was still going on, and I had a low draft number 99, And that meant that I was definitely going to be drafted. In fact, my draft board had told me to prepare to be drafted when I graduated. The educational deferment that allowed me to stay in school would end. So I hurriedly went to the Air Force ROTC office on campus, having been accepted to the University of Texas Law School. And so I joined ROTC, went through the summer camp, the ROTC training camp, and then promptly upon upon starting law school in August of '71, I also enrolled in the ROTC program. So I was in ROTC for the first 2 years of my time at University of Texas.
Okay, so this why you came to University of Texas for law school. The first 2 years you were at ROTC. Tell us about that experience. How did you balance the ROTC with the academic side, the learning side? How did you balance
Gloria,
that?
It was an interesting time. Vietnam was still going on, and the people had a very strong negative feeling about Vietnam. Many people were leaving, avoiding the draft by going to Canada or over to Europe, or finding some way to avoid the draft. I didn't mind going in the military, but I'd rather do it with my career in mind. So that was why I joined the ROTC. Wore uniform 2 days a week on the campus. Walked around campus in uniform, and got a lot of cold stares and a lot of snide comments from students who did not want the war and saw me as a military person.
So while you were at law school at University of Texas?
Yes.
So once you got your law degree, what did you do after that?
Well, I graduated in fact, I finished my classes in December of 1973, took the bar exam in January of 1974, and then waited to see if I passed the bar exam. If I passed the bar exam, then I would go in as a captain, as a assistant staff judge advocate, military lawyer in the Air Force. If I didn't pass the bar exam, then I'd go in as a second lieutenant, working in some other field in the Air Force. So I was a little concerned about whether I'd pass the bar, but I did. And so in July of 1974, my first assignment was in Beale Air Force Base, just north of Sacramento, California.
Okay, so you were actually in the military. Okay.
I served 4 years in the Air Force.
Okay, and there was all 4 years served in California, Sacramento?
No, a couple of years there, and then I was transferred to Germany, and I was in a southwest Germany, a base called Simbach Air Base, which was located, it's hard to describe it, about 30 miles just north of the French-German border, and about an hour's drive from Luxembourg, and a beautiful area, and I was there for 2 years.
2 years, and then after that, so you spent 4 years in the military?
Yes.
Okay, so after the 4 years, you came back home to Texas?
Came back home to Texas was released in January of '78, was looking for a job, happened to go back to the law school and looked at the placement center, and back then, long before internet, we would use 3x5 cards and look at the placement center bulletin board and look at 3x5 cards, and there was a card there for a job as an assistant district attorney in Conroe.
Okay.
So that would have been in February, so I came and interviewed for the job with then District Attorney Jim Keeshan, and he hired me. We had a lot in common. He was from Pasadena, I was from Baytown. He had gone to the University of Texas Law School, as I had, and he was in the Air Force as an attorney as I was, so he hired me. He was happy to hire me. I was happy to take the job, although at the time I did not know much about Conroe. The only thing I really knew about Conroe was going to Camp Straight for years when I was in Boy Scouts. And we really never spent any time in downtown Conroe. So my first time really to visit Conroe was in February of '78 when I interviewed for the job.
Okay, so you got hired for the position, and after that you moved to Conroe.
I moved to Conroe, moved into the Bellshire Apartments, single at the time, and started working Valentine's Day of 1978 for the DA's office.
Okay, so how was that? So you weren't 30 yet though, right?
29.
29, okay.
I celebrated my 30th birthday later that same year.
Okay.
And I enjoyed, I'd done a lot of courts martials in the Air Force, military work, trial work, so it came, I won't say it was easy. Trial work's never easy, but it was easy to make the adjustment. And so back then, the district attorney's office was actually called the 9th Judicial District, and the 9th Judicial District attorney's office covered 4 counties, not just Montgomery County, but it also included Polk County, St. Jacinta County, and Waller County over at Hempstead. And so about a year into my service, I was asked to serve as the attorney representing the other 3 counties. So they were smaller counties, and at the time Conroe probably didn't have much more than about 10,000 people. I don't know how large the Montgomery County was, probably maybe 50, 60,000, I'm guessing.
Okay.
And so my job the last 2 years was to serve as, in effect, the attorney, the district attorney for the other 3 smaller counties, but I still officed in Montgomery County.
So you came here, and it was Montgomery County. They served 4 counties, and you served Polk,
Waller, St. Jacinta County, and Polk, St. Jacinta County, and Waller County were the 3 counties, aside from Montgomery County, that we served. And the judges were typically circuit judges, meaning they would have dockets in various counties on various weeks. Montgomery County had the largest number of weeks of docket because it by far was the largest county, but Polk County would have a week every few months, so would St. Jacinta County, which is Cold Spring, and so would Waller County, which was Hempstead.
Okay, so you would have to travel to those locations?
Would travel. I would handle the grand jury work. I would handle the trials. I would help with the investigation of criminal cases, felony cases. They were all felony cases, and try those cases, and then come back home to, at the end of the day, to Conroe.
Okay. So how long did you stay as assistant district attorney, am I correct, with Montgomery County?
Well, for almost 3 years, from February of '78 through the end of December of 1980. But in January of 1980, I decided I was persuaded by a number of people to run for county attorney. So I ran for county attorney in January of 1980. Back then, the primary was in March. So for about 7 weeks, I took off from my job, took vacation or leave of absence, and ran for county attorney all over Montgomery County, from one end of the county to the other, which is a big county when you're trying to cover it sometimes in one day.
Who was your opponent?
The opponent was a gentleman named Bill Bernardino, who's now passed away. He was from a well-respected family in Conroe. Bill had been the county attorney for 16 years at that time, and his family was well-respected, and I knew I'd have a hard time. But you know, the county had changed a lot in that period of time, and this was a time of transition from the county being heavily Democrat to migrating over to more of a conservative Republican political philosophy. So I was the last person to run as a Democratic candidate for and get elected as county attorney. 4 years later, when I chose not to run again, and Jim Dozier ran. He ran as Republican and got beat and won as Republican, and it's been a Republican office ever since.
Okay, so after you chose not to run, did you go back to the county, or did you do something else?
Well, when I finished my 4 years as county attorney, I went to work for the law firm I'm presently with, Darden, Fowler, and Creighton, which is a firm that goes back, actually our telephone account goes back to 1926.
Oh, wow.
So George Darden was a well-established, well-respected attorney in town, and he brought on an attorney by the name of Bill Fowler Sr., then a little later, by the late 50s, early 60s, Jerry Creighton, and it became Darden, Fowler, and Creighton.
Okay, so you still work at that law firm, right?
Yes, so many of the lawyers have either moved, died, or become judges, or gone into a private practice themselves. But I and one partner, Mark Creighton, the son of one of the founding partners, Jerry Creighton, practiced together.
Okay, so you talk about local history. I know you're a big history buff, so tell us a little about I know you got a degree in history, then you also got a law degree. So talk about how did you get involved in local history in Montgomery County?
Well, Gloria, I'm not sure I can answer that question other than to say that I got fascinated in about 2010 with the fact that downtown Conroe was approaching its celebration of 100 years since the Great Fire of February of 1911, when 3 blocks of downtown Conroe were consumed by flames, and all the brick buildings you see along Main Street and Simonton Street on the southeast side of the courthouse were reconstructed. And we wanted to celebrate that period of time, so I started interviewing people for this event, and it led me to do a timeline on the history of Conroe, and over time it led me to grow that timeline. Okay,
so that's you did the history timeline book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's how you got started. And so I know. So also you also the chairperson of the Montgomery County Historical Commission, and so you've been there for how long?
I was appointed by then County Judge Barb Sadler in probably May of 2012, and was approved by the Commissioners Court probably in June of 2012. So I've been doing it about 11 years now.
Okay. So can you tell me some of the things that the Montgomery County Historic Commission services that they do for the county?
Yeah. To begin with, let me explain, because there's a lot of confusion about what any county historical commission does. We are created by a state law. We're not a nonprofit organization like the Heritage Museum would be. We are actually a department of Montgomery County itself. We are created under Chapter 318 of the Texas Local Government Code. The county commissioners appoint the individuals who serve on that commission, the volunteers that serve, such as myself, and then we also report, in addition to the county commissioners, we also report directly to the Texas Historical Commission. So our job is to preserve and promote the history of Montgomery County and also the state of Texas.
Okay.
So typically, with 254 counties, there would be and should be a county historical commission in every county in the state. Many of them are very active. A few are not very active at all.
Okay. Okay. So Montgomery County Historic Commission, I know you have your regular meetings. Y'all meet once a month?
We meet every other month typically, so we meet 6 times a year. We've been very blessed to have the Conroe Chamber host it, and we meet, typically it's a Monday evening, sometimes a Tuesday evening at the Chamber for about an hour and a half. We invite the public. You know, I post an agenda as any county department would. I post an agenda of our meeting. We invite the public to come. We have a number of guests that have come to our meetings, some of whom have liked what we do and have wanted to join. And in fact, we have probably 35 members today. When I was appointed in 2012, I was probably in my early 60s, and I was by far the youngest person on the Historical Commission. And Many of those people have died. We just lost, for example, Celeste Graves from Magnolia, who was a grand lady, a great historian of Magnolia and the west part of the area. And we have a few others that are still alive. Gertie Spencer served in my capacity before I did, and she was a great leader, obviously very instrumental in the creation of the Heritage Museum, and very instrumental in many other historical events. So she's still alive, but is not active. She's an emeritus member. Probably the oldest member we have that's still active on our commission is Anna Shepard from the Porter area.
Okay. Okay. So I know you are also a part of several different organizations, but you also serve as an attorney in several local cities around the county. So how do you juggle all of that? I mean, how do you, I mean, your plate is always full, so how do you do all of that work?
Well, you just have to schedule. If I'm doing work for a particular city or a municipal utility district or the hospital district, I represent the county hospital district, we have to work around, I try to work around my schedule to meet their needs, but sometimes there's a conflict, and I just I have to go where I'm most needed on any given night. Okay. So, but on the average, 2 to 3 nights a week, I may be in a meeting.
Okay, okay. Also, you're also an author, attorney, and an historian. What was the first book that you published?
Well, it actually was the Montgomery County Historical Timeline, which, people ask me all the time, how did you get started with that? And I'd been doing this timeline. Lawyers, when they prepare for a trial, they do like a chronology of the historical events so that you can explain that to the judge and the jury. And so I always use little bullet points, and I found that to be useful when I started doing a timeline of first Conroe, and then because the town of Montgomery is so fascinating, being the earliest community in the county and going back to the or the time of the Texas Revolution, I encompassed that, and I began looking at other great writers of Montgomery County history. Among them was William Harley Gandy, who was the first chairman of this commission that I now serve on. And in 1952, he wrote a definitive book on the history of Montgomery County for his master's thesis. And I used a lot of that material, and then other sources. Dr. Robin Montgomery, who's a good friend of mine, has written several books, and many others as well. And started doing that, and at some point, Barb Sadler, this is before I was appointed county commissioner or commission chairman of the historical commission, Barb Sadler said, Larry, when you get this thing finished, the county would like to publish it. And I started thinking about it, and I says, wow, if I'm going to do that, I need to make it a little bit more scholarly than what it is now. And then I started adding photographs and maps and going to the Conroe Courier, and I'd spend a lot of time at the Family Genealogical Center on the second floor of the county library here in Conroe, looking at old Conroe newspaper articles and books that have been written by people like Whitson Etheridge, who was a longtime Conroe attorney and a historian in his own right. And so that's how it came together. And so I finally finished it through 2013 or 2012, and it was published in January of 2013.
Okay, what timeline? When did you begin it? And do you remember the beginning?
I would say it was over about a period of 3 years.
3 years, okay.
Yeah, from about 2010 is when I started working on it, because that was about the time I was getting involved in promoting the history of the old Gentry building, the old West building, which is now where the corner pub is, and all the other buildings along there. Of course, the Crichton Theater and so forth.
Okay. So are you currently working on any new books?
Yes. Well, of course, a couple of years ago, I, in collaboration with Sandra Hernandez from the Conroe Courier, Dr. Robin Montgomery and his daughter, Joy Montgomery, we wrote a book on Conroe, Historical Pictorial History of Conroe, which was published by Acadia Publishing. And it's just more of a fun pictorial book of the history of Conroe. But when I finished the volume, the timeline, I knew that there'd be a lot of material that I missed. I'd find people that would correct dates and information, and I welcomed that information. And in that preface, I said, listen, I expect there'll be another book coming, and you'll correct me. You readers will correct me, and you'll give me more information. And in fact, that's what happened. Over the next several years, people would come to me with old photographs from their grandmother's attic or from their family album, or I'd learn new stories, or people would come to me because I was the county Historical Commission with neat stories that would go lost if they weren't really told during this time. So almost immediately I started updating the first edition, and I finished it in 2021. I said, I got to stop somewhere. So I stopped there, but it took me about another year to fine-tune this second edition. And we hope to have now it'll be a 2-volume edition of the Montgomery County Historical Timeline. It's gone from, the first edition was 239 pages. The second edition is roughly close to 500 pages, 250 pages in each volume 1 and volume 2.
Okay, so you don't have a date when those going to be coming out for print?
Well, we're working with a publisher, HB Books, which is out of San Antonio, that did the first edition, and we're working with them right now. I'm hoping that they'll be ready to take it to press sometime in August. I'd like to think that by September or October at the latest, volume 1 will be ready, and then we'll immediately move to volume 2 and hopefully have both volumes available in time for Christmas.
Okay. Are any of those books, I know they're in the library, are any of them in the, like in the county schools, in the CISD schools?
Well, we print them in both hardbound and softbound, and the softbound are always available through the Heritage Museum, local stores, and we make hardbound copies available for all of the county libraries, and we make them available free of charge to any school system that wants them. So hopefully they'll end up in all the schools in their libraries.
That'll be a lot of interesting history in there. Tell us about your wife and how long you've been married.
Well, I've been.
And how and where did you guys meet?
Well, she may not like me telling this story. So, but Martha is originally from Amarillo, went to University of Arkansas, where she got a degree in social work. And after working on her master's degree at Sam Houston State, she moved to Conroe the same month I moved to Conroe. We didn't know each other, but she moved here and went to work for Child Protective Services, and we actually both moved into the old Belshire Apartments, new Belshire Apartments at that time, but again, we didn't know each other, and I don't know that I ever saw her around the apartment complex. Neither one of us probably spent much time at the apartment because of our job. And then I met her the first time. She and her supervisor, Teresa Manus, gave a presentation to the Kiwanis Club that I was a member of, and she was there and didn't think much of it. But about that same time, our DA's office started representing Child Protective Services in child custody cases before the district court. And she became the court liaison for that. So I got assigned to a lot of those, so I got to work with her there, got to know her, and her roommate, her supervisor at that time, Teresa Manus. They ended up inviting me over a few times to play bridge and eat dinner. We started dating, and we dated off and on during the campaign of the spring of '81, and then after I got elected, spring of '80, and then got elected and took office in January of '81. We got married in October of '81.
Okay. So y'all have any kids?
We have 2 children, both of them adopted, and they're great kids. We're very proud of both of them. Emily, who's now 35, married, has 2 beautiful children, our grandchildren, and she's married to Barkley. She and her husband Barkley are in real estate. And then our son Daniel is, and his wife Mary Beth work down in South Texas for Texas Parks and Wildlife, and he also works in the airborne unit for the National Guard. With his unit is in Huntsville. And so they enjoy the outdoors, and they enjoy their job down there.
I know you're a very busy man because you're still working as an attorney, and you are chairman of the Montgomery County Historical Commission. So what do you do for fun in your spare time?
Well, we like to travel. We really enjoy road trips around Texas and around the country. This is a beautiful nation to look at and to visit. We enjoy family and doing things together as family. I like writing articles on buildings and people in Montgomery County. So I still do a lot of research.
Okay. So I know you do a lot of research, and you were talking about how, as a lawyer, the timelines, and that's the idea you got from your book. And so you do a lot of research. I know you go to libraries and do a lot of research. Do you do a lot of research also on the internet?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, the internet provides a lot of access to information that wasn't available even in 2013 when I did the first edition. There is a website called Portals of Texas, which is by the University of North Texas, that is a free site that anybody can go to. They have old newspapers, old photographs, archives of various kinds, personal historical archives, and I got a lot of information from there. So
how do you, I guess you have to set time aside to do all of this too. So do you say, okay, on this day I'm gonna work on my book, on this day I'm gonna do that? So I know you gotta have a plan of action.
Most of it's done either at night, if I have time at night, or on Saturdays or maybe Sunday afternoon.
Okay. So can you tell us about any other event that you wish future generations to know about, or something that I hadn't asked you, or something that you would like to share?
Gosh, I would just say that the history of Conroe, the history of Montgomery County, and the history of Texas is really all about people. And that's what's so fascinating to me about history, is not the events per se, but the people that were involved in the events. And so we're at a time now where we can recognize groups and individuals that maybe didn't get as much attention years and years ago. One of the things that several of us are very involved in right now is trying to preserve the Conroe College. You know, originally started in 1903 on what was really the edge or just outside of town of Conroe before it expanded to encompass that. And it had at one time maybe 105 acres where black students could go long before public education was available, and private education was typically only available through the churches. And some visionaries, Dr. Jimmy Johnson and so many other people, wanted to help black youth get classic or academic training and vocational training so they could elevate themselves and do better. And that's, to me, an inspiring story. And the campus is now owned in private hands. It's about 20 acres. It's adjacent to the Conroe Community Cemetery, which is a very important African American cemetery. We've got a Buffalo Soldier there, and other great people like Mitty Campbell, who was started the Mitty Campbell High School, the first really public black school in Conroe. And so those two, the campus and the cemetery, are adjacent to each other. And several of us on the Historical Commission and other people in the community are working very hard to get some kind of recognition for the Conroe Normal and Industrial College, as it was originally called. It's got a great legacy, and we want to preserve that.
Okay, okay. All right. Well, anything else you would like to share?
No, I can't think of anything.
All right. Well, okay. If nothing more, I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Larry. Thank you. God bless you.
Yeah, well, God bless you.